Hello and welcome back, everyone. My name is Lindy Johnson, Kristen Klein, and Charlie Tavidjian, and we're just going to have a conversation with you today about some questions we have received through advocacy with the EMA program. So, without further ado, I think this concept is helpful for advocates on the front end or maybe in the middle of it, right? Of what do I do if I have concerns about mom's ability to parent?
Mm-hmm.
And to start with, like, does my concern matter? Do I do anything with it? Kind of where do I like hold space for that? And so I'd love to just hear, like, what do we think? What would we advise?
I think it's a question we get a lot.
Yeah.
It's something that keeps people from wanting to be an advocate because they feel that pressure and responsibility if things go wrong, and it's a really daunting space.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
yeah. And so I think one, to the question of what do I do if I do have concerns, is there is an EMA coordinator, EMA case manager that is in place to offer support to the advocate and to the mom who is ready to receive those types of thoughts, questions at any time. And something I've heard often us say is that we want to focus on the safety of the family. And so never are we going to do that at the detriment of the child, but we want to also consider how do we help this family stay safe as a whole unit. And so if we need to involve other people, then we take those necessary steps. But as an advocate, you want to connect with your coordinator or your EMA case manager so that they can take those steps with you. And they're going to help to identify with you what you're seeing. And I think it's also important for us to check our bias while we're on the topic.
Yeah, because we all come into the space with different experiences and cultures and even definitions of what family wellness is. So my definition for family wellness and your definition for family wellness might be really different.
Sure.
And I might see you as really dysfunctional and you see us as really stereotypical. And we don't want to project that on the families that we serve. Like, we've talked a lot about approaching it with this attitude of just seeking to understand and being this listener, because like we have this opportunity to sort of figure out, like, what are your rhythms and routines as a family. And when it comes to safety, if you have questions, whether it's like, don't be afraid to ask that question to your coordinator and your teams that are there to support you, because it might be a really valid question. And in other times, there might be an opportunity to redirect your line of thinking. And so that takes a lot of humility to be like, yeah, I was wrong. It's okay that this family is living with 12 people under one roof. Like, that's not dysfunctional. That's actually pretty normal for that ethnicity or culture. And so, yeah, I think that's important to remember.
Yeah, well, I think you each bring up a good point of, like, the difference of a safety factor versus like a quality of parenting.
Totally.
So many factors go into a quality of parenting, bias playing a big role in that, as well as just like where are they at in life. And safety we would handle differently.
Yeah.
So I think keeping it kind of like to this question of more around the like quality of parenting, right? We would certainly want to get into more details probably in a different video here about like what to do if there's a genuine safety issue.
Yeah.
But like quality of parenting, connectedness. So with that, it sounds like the best response for me, if I'm the advocate, I have concerns about quality, not necessarily a safety issue, is to connect with my support team through the coordinator. Follow-up question from that. Is it appropriate to integrate that in my documentation? Obviously, a big part of advocacy is session notes during our time with mom. How do I or do I not document my concerns or what I'm seeing in session reports?
That's a great question. You can document concerns specifically in a session note. And when you're documenting anything, positive, negative, you want to stick to the facts. You want to be clear. You want to be concise in what you're communicating and know that you're communicating from your perspective. And also make note that we'll follow up with the case manager regarding this. And in addition to submitting the session note, is to send a text or call your case manager or your EMA coordinator to discuss the things that you've documented. And if we need to add more to the note or create a new note, then the case manager can assist with that. The advocate, you can do that. but you can get direction from your case manager. And so it is okay to document that concern. Just like anything else, keep it clear, keep it concise, and keep it straight to the facts.
Yeah.
And then connect with your case manager to help lead in the direction of what's the appropriate next step. And then if we need to make adjustments to the note, we can.
Yeah. Anything you'd add to that, Charlie?
I'm just thinking of an example, and especially when it comes to parenting styles. Like I can look at 20 different parents and be like, we don't parent that way, or I would have done that differently. And they probably look at you and think the same thing. And so it is this gray space of like, this is my parenting style. So for an example, if you're with your mom and she like snaps on baby or responds really harshly and doesn't respond with this gentle, like eye contact, get on the floor. Are you putting that in your session report? Mom snapped at kid. So it's gray and it's hard, which is why we're talking about it. And again, I think all roads lead back to like, if you're really struggling with this versus just taking that moment and being like, oh, I know it's so frustrating. Sometimes what I try to do is like, or sometimes what, even if you're not a parent, if you're an auntie, if you babysit, whatever your approach is, that you're sort of using that moment to redirect versus report, I think is important, that we're not over documenting and becoming this level of surveillance where now it's really harming my ability to build a relationship with you because I'm observing you versus building a relationship with you. Like every parent on the earth has bad moments.
Right.
And so as an advocate, which bad moments are we recording? If you're really struggling with, hey, like this happened and mom not only snapped on him, but she like, I can't even think of an example. She smacked him or she did this. Like, come to a professional and say, should I put this in the note?
Yeah.
Or I'm starting to see a pattern every time I'm with her. This happening. I feel like there's anger underneath that and some trauma and we've got to address it. So that's where this question can feel really gray. Yeah. And there's not a one size fits all answer.
Right. No, it's really good perspective. I think when this question came up, there was also this added, to kind of blend what you guys are saying, like there was this added dynamic of, it's not for you, the advocate, to decide, right? Like the advocate, the role is not a decision maker, right? The advocate walks alongside, supports, in time is observant. But when we do our advocacy training, we talk through how we document, a framework of that being SOAP, S-O-A-P, subjective, objective assessment, and then plan, like in progress.
Yeah.
And if we're doing that well, we're incorporating what mom is saying, how she expressed herself, right? Like her awareness, what she's working on, what's hard for her. We document her demeanor when she's talking about her kids or when she's interacting with her kids, right? If we do that well, while building trust, those who are making decisions have what they need to the best of their ability, right? Out of our control, but to the best of our ability, we've done our part to give the facts, what you're emphasizing, Kristen, and the observations and the patterns, if they're there, so that the people who need to make the decision have what they need to make the best decision.
Yeah.
Not for me to make that decision.
Yeah.
And I think that like alleviates the pressure of, well, what do I do with my concerns? Well, I've got to check myself, my bias, right? My lens of kind of how I view the world around me and quality of parenting and whatnot. I also, it is within like my role, my authority to like be good at documenting facts, right?
Yeah.
Know the difference between facts and like my opinion, right? So we have to do that work and then documenting it appropriately, definitely checking with coordinator along the way. If we have concerns, we're not sure how to like write it factually versus opinion oriented. And then like everything is where it needs to be for the mom to have the support she needs, to have any checks along the way, additional resources. Does that sound like a good like, kind of whole picture?
Well, and I think with what you're saying too, as advocates, we're looking for the strengths.
Yeah.
We're looking for the good. We're not looking for the weaknesses. If you're looking for the weaknesses and the vulnerabilities of someone's parenting, you're going to find them. You follow me around for a week, you're going to have a lot to report on. So it's like, but when there's an incident,
right,
and you're not sure, is this an incident or is this just this like weak moment as a mom where she was totally fed up with her kids and snapped on them verbally, then ask the question.
Yeah.
So I agree that we also can't be negligent in the information and the observations that we have.
Right.
But make sure to address that in the moment too.
Yeah.
And if you're not sure if how you addressed it in the moment was right or wrong, to fall back on your support system.
Yeah. That's good. Sounds like it's a lot of both and.
Yeah.
That we gotta bring to the table. But for the sake of just wrapping up this conversation, I think it's helpful. This conversation is oriented to not a major safety concern. This is like more generic, more quality of parenting, kind of observing patterns if they're there. Definitely, I think we will do a whole other conversation about specifically like safety related questions, challenges, and protocols. So anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, I think that was great.
All right, great. Thank you, ladies. And thanks for joining us.